There are a lot of strange fetishes around, and my boyfriend's got one of the weirdest I've heard of. Definitely the weirdest I've experienced. We've been dating for 2 years now. We were friends before we started dating, and at that point, he seemed like the most normal guy in the world. In fact, I would say he was super boring. He was your typical awkward 16-year-old boy. He loved gaming, and by gaming, I mean Dungeons and Dragons type stuff. He didn't have a lot of friends outside of his gaming circle. We had known each other since we were little. We grew up on the same street, only 5 houses away. We became fast friends. There were lots of kids on our street, but I found that most of them were girls, and they were all super bossy. There was one girl, Melanie, who was pretty nice, but she was a girly girl, and we always wanted to do different things. I was more into sports and climbing trees, and she was into dressing up in her mom's fancy clothes, talking about boys, and doing her makeup. I tried to be friends with her. My mom told me that I needed to put more effort into friendships with girls. I think she was secretly worried I'd end up a lesbian or something, being so boyish. So I made the effort for her, and I hung out with Melanie 3 or 4 times before realizing we were just too different. I remember one afternoon trying to go see a movie together, but we couldn't agree on a movie we both wanted to see. She wanted to see all the chick flicks, and I wanted to see the new Terminator movie. When I met Ken, I felt so relieved that I had actually met someone I could really get along with, someone I didn't have to be someone else around. I didn't have to fake interest in things I couldn't care less about, and we always wanted to do the same things. The only thing I wasn't particularly interested in was Dungeons and Dragons, but he was good to not prattle on about it too much. We were friends for just over a year before we became boyfriend and girlfriend. It was a typical thing. We had been talking about what it would be like to have a boyfriend or girlfriend, and we both agreed that it was so scary. But what we were the most scared of was that first kiss. Neither of us had kissed anyone before. We decided to try it with each other so we would be ready and not awful when that big moment arrived. The first time we kissed, it was on a night when my parents were out. We were allowed to stay home alone, and we had discussed that it would be a good night to try. We were both a little nervous, but not overly as we were so comfortable with each other. We decided to dim the lights to take some of the pressure off. We were sitting on the couch in the dark and started leaning in towards each other. The problem was we both closed our eyes, so when we got close to the other's face, we had both just stopped waiting for the other to make the final move. After what seemed like an eternity of waiting, although it was likely only a few seconds, I opened my eyes to see Ken peeking at me as well. We both started laughing and decided to try again, this time with our eyes open. When our lips touched each other's, it was like electricity was flowing between us. It wasn't at all what I was expecting. We ended up just kissing for hours. By the end of the night, my lips were actually sore. I asked him what he thought of it and if it was what he expected, and he said it was better. I agreed. A few weeks later, he asked if I wouldn't mind trying it again. He gave me some bogus excuse of wanting to practice because he was planning on planting one on Christy Lank, one of the most popular girls in school. When he said Christy, I knew he was definitely just making an excuse to ask for another kiss. It's not like he would ever even have the nerve to talk to her, let alone kiss her. I pretended I believed him though and let it happen. I had to admit I had been thinking of kissing him again too. The first time we saw each other after that first kiss, I could feel my cheeks blushing. And when I noticed that his were too, we both started laughing again. At that point, I realized that I didn't want to stop kissing him, nor did I want to kiss anyone else. That night, I texted him and asked him if he would like to be boyfriend and girlfriend officially. He said he thought I'd never ask. We were both over the moon. It was so funny to me that I had never even thought of him in that way. And he secretly confessed that he had had a crush on me for quite some time. So we started dating and holding hands in school. It felt like a very natural switch to go from friends to boyfriend and girlfriend. So we dated for over a year before the big talk about going all the way came up. We were both curious, but weren't sure if we were too young or not. I had gotten my period when I was only 11 and had developed early. I knew my body was ready, but I wasn't sure if it would hurt or how it would feel afterwards. One day, I discovered a very interesting thing about Ken. I was at his house one night when I unexpectedly got my period. Of course, I didn't have any pads with me, so I was hiding out in the washroom trying to decide what to do. I hovered over the toilet for as long as I could, hoping it wouldn't be too heavy, and then I could just sneak home early for some made-up reason or another. I foolishly had used so much toilet paper wiping myself over and over again that I had clogged the toilet. Now what was I going to do? I couldn't hover over the toilet anymore, but I was bleeding heavily, and I didn't want it running down my legs and staining my pants. There was a cup next to the sink, and I decided to grab it and position myself over the top of it. I had been in the washroom for quite a while at this point, and knew Ken would likely be wondering what was going on in there. I had pretty much filled the cup when the bleeding seemed to stop. Just as I was trying to decide what to do with the cup or how to sneak it out discreetly so I could dump it somewhere, when Ken knocked on the door. "What's going on in there? Did you fall into the toilet or something?" In my panic to get out quickly, I forgot the cup on the sink. I told Ken I wasn't feeling well and should go home early, but he seemed so disappointed. I felt bad and decided to stay. It had occurred to me that I could check his parents' ensuite bathroom for some of his mom's pads. Luckily, I found some, and we went back to watching our movie. Ken had excused himself to use the washroom, and I went into the kitchen for a snack. I was popping some popcorn when I realized Ken had been gone for longer than I would have thought. I suddenly remembered the sight of that cup filled with blood sitting on the sink edge. I rushed down the hall, and the washroom door was just slightly ajar. It was open enough that I could see inside, and what I saw blew my mind. There was Ken with the cup at his lips. He was actually drinking the blood. I didn't know what to think or do, so I crept backward slowly and quietly and went back to sit on the couch. I couldn't get over what I had seen, and it was very hard to act normal when Ken came back and put his arm around me again. When he leaned in for a kiss, I pulled back, and he asked what was wrong. I hesitated, then decided the truth was best. "I saw you drinking the blood in the bathroom. I hate to tell you that was my period blood." Ken said he knew it was, and that when I was in there for so long, he suspected it was girl problem related. He asked if I thought he was totally gross, and I said I really didn't know what to think. We had talked about going all the way, and up until that moment I saw him drinking my period blood. I thought going all the way was the most intimate thing two people could do together. Now, I was realizing there were lots of strange intimate acts two people could engage in together. So Ken liked to drink my period blood. That was definitely something I would keep to myself. We had decided to postpone going all the way and explore other ways of being intimate. Every month when I got my period, I would save some in a cup for Ken, and he would drink it. I asked him what it was about it that he liked, and he said it just felt kind of primal and super intimate. I never did tell anyone and promised him I never would. When someone found out accidentally, though, it was not good. I had a diary and I wrote everything in it. That was the only place I had confessed Ken's strange interest. When I was getting more pressure again from my mom to hang out with girls my age, I had invited Melanie over to hang out one day. She had found my diary while I was making us a snack to go with a movie. She didn't tell me she had read it, but at school the following Monday, I figured it out. Ken and I were walking down the hall hand in hand towards our locker when a bright red smear caught my eye. It was on Ken's locker and said, "Period drinker" and "freak" in bright red letters. Ken looked at me with absolute shock and disappointment on his face. I felt crushed that he would think I had told someone, but what else was he supposed to think? I washed it off right away, but Ken had taken off before I had a chance to explain what had happened. I found Melanie and tore a strip out of her. This kind of thing was exactly why I was never friends with girls. They were mean. As disappointed as I was in Melanie, I was more worried about Ken and what he was thinking of me. He wasn't responding to my phone calls or texts, so I had stopped by his house on the way home from school that day. When he opened the door, I had to stop him from slamming it in my face. I said, "Don't you know me at all? If you did, you'd know I would never tell anyone something like that." He seemed to be considering what I was saying, and when I told him that Melanie must have read my diary when she was over, he said, "That makes more sense." He wrapped me up in his arms and said sorry for ever doubting me. I felt horrible that his secret had come out, but we were closer than ever after that. We learned the hard way to always trust each other and never assume the worst before you've heard the whole story. To watch more animated story videos like this, hit that subscribe button. And tell us in the comments section what you thought about this story.